Hey folks, 13-3 here, well into our second season with our guest, referee Greg Offerman. And this episode is sponsored by State Farm Insurance, Hertel Law, Raleigh's Coach Club, Riverside Bike and Skate, and Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, which has been committed to the healthcare needs of patients in Western Wisconsin since 1954. Mogi.
Greg, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with us today before you head off to Milwaukee to officiate the Admirals and the Manitoba Moose, I understand.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
All right, watch out for flying pucks, buddy.
Yeah, well, always got to stay out of the way. And best case scenario, we don't even get noticed tonight. So
that's good.
Maybe that's the best case scenario for this podcast, right? If I just don't get noticed, that'll be a win for me. Yeah.
Trust us. Yeah. People don't sign up to listen to us, buddy. So you better be interesting so they can enjoy the podcast.
At least we got a good-looking face that finally showed up for the YouTube part.
Hey, a face for podcasts, huh?
Yeah, we definitely do. Face for radio. Yeah.
You did not grow up in a hockey hotbed area. Whereabouts where did you grow up?
Well, I was just going to say I grew up in the hockey hotbed of Charles City, Iowa, which is kind of right in the footprint of USHL and a lot of junior hockey, but not a lot of youth hockey opportunities. So I like to joke that I was the commissioner, the coach, the captain, and the center, sometimes the goalie when it comes to the pond hockey games or the street hockey games that we had growing up. So if there was a game in town, it was very likely that I caused it to happen. That's for sure.
So what drew you to the game?
Oh, like any kid, you walk in. I remember walking into my first game. It was at the North Iowa Fairgrounds in Mason City, watching the USHL team, the Huskies at the time, and you're just taken by the speed of it and the pucks flying everywhere and the hits and just the nonstop action. I think that's what hooked me on it, and quickly, like the curiosity, you want to understand how the game works and the rules and joking about the hockey hotbed of Charles City, I think I was that one person that would be explaining the rules and how the game worked, what offsides was, how icing worked to, my family and friends as I'm trying to, get more hockey players around and cause these games to happen. So
how did you figure all this out? I mean, just by osmosis, just by being around it and taking it all in?
Yeah, watching games, reading, I probably was looking up the rule book at the time. Video games were starting to come out, so you could play on there and get your team set exactly how you liked it and all that too. So you kind of just bring your world and make your world what you wanted it to be. So that was my experience growing up with it. Yeah.
So you started from the data end of it.
He's a true hockey nerd.
Yeah.
So one of our former podcast episode guests was Luke Strand, played down at North Iowa for the Huskies, and I think Joe Muzzy did too. Joe listens to most of our episodes, so shout out to Joe.
Shout out to Joe.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned Luke. I got to work with him. I was telling you guys beforehand, I worked in the athletic department here at UW-Madison. So when Luke was coaching for UW for a year, I was here with him and supporting the staff on the administrative side. So it kind of worked in my favor, I'll say. I don't know how he'll look at it, but when I got to see the Sioux City Musketeers, I kind of had that relationship with him. I already had some rapport with him. So when he would be yelling at us about something, I could kind of see through it and see that twinkle in his eye. That it was
twinkle in Luke's eye.
He always meant well when he was yelling at us. Yeah.
He does have a little.
He's just trying to help you, wasn't he?
Yeah.
All coaches just try to help officials.
They're just trying to teach. That's what they do.
Yeah,
a little growl streak in him.
Yeah.
At what age did you finally strap on the skates then?
I was always skating. I remember getting skates when I was 7, 8, 9 and be out skating on the pond and of course like out on rollerblades too in the driveway and in the streets and that playing street hockey all summer too. So I was always skating. I kind of got away from it a little bit, I would say, in high school because I was a 4-sport athlete and focused elsewhere and ended up focusing on track and kind of that expertise when I got into college. But I had a teammate that was from the Toronto area, a middle distance runner, and I was a 400 hurdler. And he kind of got me back into it. And honestly, I can safely say this now. My track coaches won't get mad at me, but getting on the ice, like starting to skate again, kind of helped out my track career. Just be like the little bit of cross training and using a little bit different muscles that you don't always use was a huge benefit to my running. And so that's when I started I was 21 at the time, so I can safely say it was the beer leagues. You know, started the rec leagues and enjoying playing the game. You know, with older people at that point, or older than me, anyways, I should say. And honestly, I wish I would have gotten into officiating at that point too, just because I always like to joke my best skill with the puck is dropping it. Like I never had great hands. Yeah. Or dropping it or dodging it, one of the two. But you know, I never had the hands or the puck skills to like keep up with my skating necessarily. So I wish I would have got into officiating then earlier on, but I didn't start officiating until I was 28. But I think it came along at a good time in my growth as a human, where I was comfortable kind of being that presence on the ice and having to enforce certain rules and keep games safe and fair.
I got to throw this out. I was a track guy too, cross country track guy, but I didn't have any obstacles in front of me. You know, I just ran around as many times as they would make us go. But anybody who's got the 400, the intermediate hurdles, correct? So that's one time around the track for anybody who doesn't know that. That's probably one of the most grueling races in the world. I mean, you've got to sprint and you've got to jump, and he looks like a meek, mild-mannered guy, but you know, I think that's probably a Superman-esque deep down inside. This guy's a competitor. He's an animal. Yeah. You can just tell that just by knowing what he did.
You're getting me excited here. I might have to knock some chairs or tables over something here and run some hurdles.
Good.
But
a little WWE.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I had longer hair back then, so I like to talk about how I ran with my hair on fire, and that was kind of the vision, the motivation to get around the track and get over those 10 barriers.
Make
for sure.
The hair stand straight up.
Yeah.
Cool for the ladies.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so 28 years old, you finally decide to throw on the stripes. Mm-hmm. What age group are you refereeing at that time?
Oh man, I like to joke that I did a lot of, I think it was $13.62. I called them the $13.62 special. I did a lot of squirt games. And at that point, we were very fortunate in the Madison area. Our scheduler and our local association, they do a really good job of bringing people along and pairing them with more experienced officials so you can learn the game from the officiating side. And so I lined a ton of squirt games. And honestly, I mean, the game is slow, but it was a huge benefit to learn the mechanics, where to be, you know, how to stay out of the way and make those calls with confidence. And so I that first year, I think I worked, I only got certified halfway through my first year in 14-15. And I worked maybe 78 games, you know, starting after Thanksgiving. Like I was working 3 or 4 games a day, and was fortunate to then, you know, after the new year, going into January, I got in 15 high school games as well. So it was just the perfect storm of being in a great place, having fantastic mentors that wanted to make sure you come back from game 1 to game 2. And honestly, from the first game, I just remember it was a Pee Wee game over in Stoughton, and I can't tell you if I saw anything that game or even blew my whistle once, but I remember leaving that game thinking I got to do this again, and I want to get better at it. So it was a ton of fun that first year, and still then, or you know, carrying on today, just have a learner's mindset, a growth mindset, and always trying to get a little bit better at it.
Boy, that you grabbed the passion right away for that.
Yeah,
not many people can say that about throwing stripes on.
Yeah,
it's tough. Let's face it. You guys take a lot of abuse out there, you know, and undeservedly so. And as a former coach, I made my share of mistakes, you know, criticizing officials. But all I ever say now, you know, as I got older, and we just talked to Coach Cook, and he talked about how he mellowed with age. And I think everybody naturally does that. And when you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand that they're trying to do the best they can. And obviously their perspective is different than your perspective, because they're right out on the ice, right in the mix. So so I'm just trying to absolve myself of all my sins for any officials that I ever berated, or, you know,
including me.
Most of the officials that I ever berated. No, of course, JC, you never missed a call though when you were reffing our games. What are you kidding?
Hey, if you didn't see it, it didn't happen. Right?
Well, you know what I always say: you may not always be right, but you're never wrong. So we always have that power and that ability.
Never heard a ref change his mind. Okay, you're right, Coach. Never.
You mentioned mentors.
Yeah.
Who did you have as mentors? Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, so many. And honestly, it's not just the officiating side too, but the the one person that helped me get started was Dan Fitzsimmons. And for anybody that's been to the Badger games here in the Kohl Center in LeBon, he was a lines person in the WCHA for a long time. And so I met him, and he got me introduced, taught me all the administrative things, like how to get signed up, how to get signed up with USA Hockey and the Wisconsin Hockey Officials Association, then your local association. There's a lot of different barriers that you kind of need some guidance and a roadmap to get through. So he was fantastic. And I remember he showed up to one of my first games. He wasn't working the game, but he took the time out of his schedule to be there and help out and make sure, again, that I had a good time and was doing all right and was getting ready to come back for my next game. So, and I've touched base with him a few times throughout the years, and he's since moved out to Idaho. But, he was huge just in getting me going. And I remember that. And, always I'll take the time, give anybody my time to help them get started out and signed up and make sure they get their, kind of get their group of people around them and support them along the way. And other than that, honestly, just being back here, in LeBon today, it's, it'd be hard to say that people like Mike Eves and his coaching staffs and Tony Granato and his coaching staffs and Mark Johnson and his staff haven't been a huge, mentor or benefit to me, because they're always, like, hockey people are always trying to make the game better. And I was very fortunate to work in the athletic department here at Wisconsin, and they were always really great to me, whether it was to let me pop in and watch practice or watch the kids skate or jump on some dirty ice after practice and do my own skating. So they've been great too, and kind of helping me find gigs or jobs or tournaments to work wherever it may be. So coaches have been great, and then we've also had a great network of supervisors with USA Hockey and being in Madison too. I'd have to mention the late great Dan Shakti, who was just a phenomenal resource, and that man would give his time to anybody. Before I'd even worked, I think a junior game, he was talking to me on the phone and showing up to watch me work a camp game in the summertime just to give me pointers. And then when I started working in the USHL and some junior games, he would always be supervising in the area. So I was always fortunate to see him, and man, he would give you his most valuable resource, and that was his time. And so again, that's something that I'll never forget and have always appreciated. So we're very fortunate to have great people like him and others that are making the rounds and coaching and teaching us along the way.
So you mentioned having an opportunity to go on some dirty ice after a game. So I understand when you're a hockey player, okay, hockey players, they've got their workout partners, they've got practice, they go lift together and do a lot of things as a team. Whereas an official, you're not necessarily on a team. So can you kind of describe for us, what do you do for training, and how do you keep yourself in shape and ready for the season? Yeah.
You have to set your own practice schedule, right? There is no director of operations. There is no coach on a daily basis. So it's having that discipline. And for me, to me, it all kind of starts in the summertime to what sets you up for the rest of the season. So in the summertime, I've actually hired a trainer, a coach that I work with that puts together gym workouts. And so I'm in the gym at least 4, 5, 6 days a week in the summertime, just to kind of straighten yourself out again and set that foundation. And then once you get closer to the season, I'm back on the ice in the rink and skating a couple times a week, and then throughout the season, you just kind of, the game schedule really takes priority, of course. And so then it's just constant, just like the teams do, it's constant juggling of, all right, what does my body need today, in terms of, strength training or skating or conditioning, whatever it may be. So it's that part of it I really enjoy. It's a grind, but I love that process and that grind of constantly making sure you're prepared for a game, because the players are prepared. Whether it's a 10U game or a professional game, the players have put a lot of time into making sure that they're prepared and ready to go. So I think that we owe the game, and we owe the teams and the players and the coaches and fans that same respect, right? To be ready and be prepped physically for everything.
So a note to the younger referees, if you want to climb the ranks, preparation and being in shape is very important. And you touched on some of the ranks that you refereed. We've talked about USA Hockey. We've talked a little bit about juniors, but high school, NCAA, East Coast, AHL, what levels have you refereed at?
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm just pinching myself, kind of sitting back and reflecting on it now with you guys. It's, I mentioned my first year, I think I worked 78 games. My second year, I worked 158 games, I think it was. And, that year I was able to move up and work some bantam games and worked a full high school schedule. And so, and then I started working a little bit of junior hockey my second year. And then my third year, I was fortunate to be a part-time official in USA Hockey's officiating development program. So for those that aren't familiar, they schedule everything from the NA3 to the North American Hockey League to the United States Hockey League. So that year was a big year for me, just to get a taste of a little bit higher level, and continued to work a ton of local games and high school games as well. And from there, that was the 16-17 year, and in 17-18, I worked, my schedule was pretty much full-time in the United States Hockey League. I know we have on the schedule here to talk about some injuries and stuff too, but 18-19 was a tough year for me. I ended up getting hurt a little bit, so I missed the first half of the season, but came back and worked the second half of the season there. And 19-20, of course, was another full-time year for me in the USHL. And then COVID shut it down. And so that was a wrench in all of our lives, right? Such a confusing, tough time for all of us to manage. And for me, it was, you're kind of getting ready for the end of the season. It was, February going into March, and we're getting ready, kind of gearing up for playoffs and things. And everyone's trying to make sure they're in top form, and just like the teams are. And that was a tough thing. And for us, it was a bit of a unique time as well. We found out a week into the pandemic that we were expecting our first child too. So it was such an exciting time and nerve-wracking time. But so I ended up taking off the entire 2021 season, just out of safety and precaution and waiting for vaccines and stuff to roll out. So I took off that year. Now, honestly, at that point, I wasn't quite sure what opportunities I would have coming back, but the East Coast Hockey League expanded into Iowa City. And so as an official, and especially as a lines person, it kind of pays to have the right zip code sometimes. So so I was close. I lived close enough, and was fortunate to be hired onto the ECHL staff to work in Iowa City. And so I did that last year. Had a great year, and what a challenge it was too, because when you're working half the home games for a team, like if you have problems or you're not on your game and getting things done right and communicating well and helping the games along, like it can be a long season, and you probably aren't going to be back. So was very fortunate to have a good season working in the ECHL, and last year also I was able to have a good season back in the USHL too, and was fortunate to work through to the finals of the USHL. Had a fantastic, just a first-class experience with the playoff run and making it through to the finals, and such a fun deal too. It just so happened that the Madison Capitals made it to the finals, so that was fun to get at least one home game.
Yeah, that would have been nice for that. Yeah,
and so of course the other team in the finals was Sioux City, all the way across the state of Iowa. So it was, got to get that one last 6-hour drive in for a hockey game. So we did that, but. And that leads up to this year. I was really, really fortunate again to get hired into the American Hockey League. And I think my wife is the most happy about that, just because the rinks I work are quite a bit closer to home. So I think those are becoming my favorite rinks. Just, I mean, obviously it's the American League and pro hockey, but if not, just because they're closer to home, and I get home earlier at night.
So you get Milwaukee, you get Iowa out of Des Moines. I understand that's the Wild.
Yeah, it's actually Milwaukee, Rockford, and in Chicago are the three in this market that I'll be assigned to. Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So it's such a treat. I mean, again, just pinching myself, thinking that I was able to make it this far and can at the very least just stay out of the way and make sure the games happen with no issues. So knock on wood, of course.
So go back to your issues. You mentioned injury.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an on-ice injury or
kind of both. Was doing a skating test and was one of the last to go, and the ice was rough, and fell and dislocated my shoulder and had to get that fixed up. But I was fortunate to have I call him a carpenter, a good orthopedic surgeon to put me back together, and rehab went well. So I was back on the ice a lot sooner than I expected, and still had a pretty good year that year. So
good for you.
Yeah, those things happen, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I broke a rib once, but that's the only thing that ever happened to me. So I feel for you. That's for doggone sure. We're going to give a quick shout out to a couple sponsors. Riverside Bike and Skate, Eau Claire's hockey headquarters, which is the oldest hockey store in the state of Wisconsin. Buy hockey gear from the people that play and know the game. Riverside Bike and Skate. And Raleigh's Coach Club in Altoona, Wisconsin, located across the street from the Altoona Ice Center on Spooner Avenue, has been a staple in the Altoona community for decades, providing support and sponsorship for youth and adult sports. Raleigh's has your favorite beverage ready and your favorite team on the screen.
So, Greg, there are two types of officials on ice. You've got the referee and the linesman. So I'm assuming you've had experience at both of those positions. Which one do you like the best?
Yeah, I do. I when I work junior hockey and pro hockey, I'm always the linesman or the linesperson. And that's really where my heart lies. I think I always tease my referee partners. I just love the fact that we work harder. It's more dangerous and we get paid less. I love all those.
So true.
Yeah,
so
doesn't
really add up, does it?
No, yeah. And I think that's just all the motivation I need to go out there and give it my all every night. But I really enjoy it. I think there's certain ways that as a lines person, you can have a great impact on a game, or I should say like a non-impact, right? Like you're kind of in the weeds of the game a little bit more. You're there for every face-off. You're there for every scrum. You're standing in front of the bench for half the game. There's just certain ways that you can have keep the game moving along smoothly, and especially if there's a player that's upset or two players upset with each other, you can get in there and try and keep everybody calm and doing their job. I think that's kind of the best case scenario for everybody. That's what the players want. That's what the coaches want. So I really enjoy that component of it. I think I just like the physical aspect of it too, of being a lines person. And of course there's the staying out of the way part, right? Like being a wallflower and then moving around and kind of doing the dance in a little box there on the blue line. But again, just keeping the players safe and all that too. I really enjoy when I work youth hockey and some high school hockey, I do referee, and I enjoy that as well. I think it's a great practice for me too, especially as a lines person working juniors and pros, to always be watching the game through the eyes of a referee too. I think it's especially in pro hockey, the game's incredibly fast, and we all have to be kind of looking at different things at different times. And if a lines person can pick something up, whether it's a penalty or a high stick or something, it always helps the game go more smoothly, and players, you kind of build that trust with the players and the coaches. And so I think I really enjoy the refereeing part when I'm not working juniors or pros, just if anything, to keep that kind of that referee muscle in my brain strong and helping myself to be a good resource for the referees when I'm working with the big guys.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned the different levels, and specifically when you started with the squirts, you made 1362?
I think that's what it was. Yeah. Larry Carrington, somewhere out there, can confirm. He was our scheduler. He's got the spreadsheets. Yeah.
Now you're lining
a
AHL, a professional hockey game.
Yeah.
What's the wage for a linesman and referee at the pro level?
Yeah, it's generally speaking, it's similar from like the USHL to the American League, and so they're anywhere from like $150 to $180 a game. So it's a great question, honestly. Like you hear a lot of people talking about they started refereeing just to make a little bit extra money to buy their next pair of skates or a stick or pads or whatever too. So a few years ago, I gave a presentation to the rec sports officials here at UW-Madison and talked about the kind of the financial boost from officiating and how great it can be. And I polled a few of my friends who had officiated over the years, and on the average, they were making about $10,000 a year from officiating. So whether, you're saving up for whatever it may be, it can be a great way to stay involved in the game and make a little bit of extra money too, to sock away for saving for a house or a car or school or whatever it may be. So, all those game fees add up, and certainly certainly helps obviously we all have a passion for it, and some of us would probably do it for free, but it's nice to get paid for the job too.
You've never been on the ice when Mogi's been a coach. You'll never do it for free.
Oh, I can guarantee it from the stories I've heard, I think I would stand on the other side of the ice. Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of stories out there.
Yeah.
Any aspirations or any potential to be able to move up to the NHL?
Oh, I would say at this point, probably not. They typically will look for people who are in the younger demographic than I am. But honestly, I'm perfectly happy doing what I'm doing, and being able to work the American Hockey League and the ECHL and in the USHL. It's such a treat to be able to skate with these players. Just to be on the ice with some of them and watch them go on and make it to where they're going. So. Of course, you never say no to a phone call like that, but it's when you love doing the job like this, you're happy for any hockey game, no matter where it is.
We met you. Go ahead, Mogi. I'm sorry.
So, do you ever find yourself watching players that just stand out from the rest, and you have to kind of refocus on the game? You kind of get mesmerized by them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you don't even have to watch them. Like you said, they stand out, right? Like it's. You kind of figure out, and that's part of our job too as officials, to figure out the players that, one, you need to build a relationship with, or two, you kind of learn their tendencies in that. But it is such a treat to watch. Any hockey game really, like just to see the skill and no matter the level of the player, like kind of mastering where they are. But some of those high end players, man, it's something else being out there with them and watching what they do. Sometimes we have the best view in the house when they're lining up for a shot from the point or wherever, you're kind of getting ready to watch for a high stick or something at the crossbar level, and just to see the plays they make or the hands they have to make it happen. It's pretty incredible.
We met you this summer at the Bob Suter Classic in Madison, Wisconsin, and you were on the ice with a substantial amount of Division I and professional hockey players. And just keeping in mind that this is a fundraiser game, those guys were still motivating.
Yeah.
And what was that like, or what is it like, even at the AHL level? I mean, these guys aren't slow. These guys have been in the NHL, are almost there. What's that like with that speed out there?
Well, you try and stay out of the way, right? Like the last thing you want to do is impact the game. The Bob Suter Memorial Game, that was a ton of fun, right? Because it's, for us anyways, like you can guarantee that's gonna be the perfect game because they don't want us to make any calls. Like it's no offsides, no icings, just point the goals, like no penalties. So that game, that was a ton of fun. Like, and we were probably slow coming out of the locker room after, just because we were talking about it and just reminiscing about how awesome it is to be out there with so many great players, like you mentioned. So. Honestly, I was teasing you guys before. Like, of all the players that were there, you decided to talk to the referees that were leaving the rink to invite them on the podcast. So that was, just a cool opportunity. But yeah, for sure, the speed of the game is incredible. So like, you have to be able to make quick decisions. And the speed is one thing, but the size of the players, they're all like as big as me. And I'm a pretty big guy, like 6'4". Take up a lot of space as a lines person on the wall. So, half of the time a player's coming up the wall, there's going to be a referee or a lines person there too. So you have to have certain skills or tactics or places to hide to, get out of the way. So you're not taking a play away from them, right? Making sure they have all the options available to them. So that's again, that's a way that we're always working to make sure that we're not having any impact on the game, right? Try and stay out of the way, and best case scenario, again, nobody notices we're there, and we sneak off the ice quietly and maybe out the side door this time so I don't get asked to go on a podcast.
Yeah, he really seems shy, doesn't he?
He does. Finally coming out of his shell. Oh my gosh. Likes and dislikes of being an official. We've talked about the speed of the game, and you love to be out there. You love to analyze the game and stuff like that. But dislikes, who's that coach that you've run into, or the player or somebody that just, got under your craw? Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know that there is a dislike. I mean, to me, it's all just a challenge, right? Like why it's a curiosity. It comes from being curious. Like, why is that coach upset? Like, are they trying to motivate? Are they, you kind of see how they coach their players. Are they trying to, like, what they do is teach. Are they trying to teach us in their own way, and not that we listen to what they say. Well, we listen to it, but not that we take action on it all the time. Right. So, I wouldn't say there's a dislike. I guess the biggest source of frustration would be like that one person, that one coach or player that you just can't get through to, to keep them calm or doing their job. And sometimes you just, it's not your fault. Like they just have, whatever's going on. So, I think that's again, kind of comes back to just keeping everybody calm and doing their job. And a lot of that comes from rule knowledge and positioning and the way we communicate too. So, other than that, I mean, as you can probably tell, I really enjoy most things about officiating. Like it's just such a fun, activity. It's a great way to meet new friends and make some of your lifelong friends too. So, not too much I dislike about it other than I guess just being gone from the family and having those late nights and weekends being on the road, but still enjoy that part of it too. Just wish you had a time turner a little bit.
Are there any barns that you've been to that you go, oh, I don't want to come back to this place?
No, never. I've never met a hockey rink or hockey game I don't like. Like I was joking, my favorite rinks are probably the closest ones to home now. Just having our little guy at home and missing the family, but I love them all. I was just down at the old Buck Barn in Des Moines. If you guys have ever been to Buccaneer Ice Arena, it's about I swear it's about 70 feet wide. Just the walls are like right on the edge of the face-off circle, and the players just seem even bigger, and the game's faster. And of course, in junior hockey, you have all the players like hanging over the wall, So it was that's a place you just like those older buildings. You just love them, the character, and you think about all the games that have been played in there, all the players that have come through. So, never met a rink or an arena that I don't like. Always just happy to be there.
Here, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors here again. First one is State Farm Insurance. For all your family's insurance needs, see one of the well-qualified Flag brothers at State Farm Insurance. Jeff in Chippewa Falls, Ryan in Eau Claire, Quinn or Rolf located in Duluth, Minnesota, who are all hockey fanatics. And also to Hertel Law, the law firm you want on your side, focusing on criminal defense and personal injury. Harry Hertel has been obtaining results for clients in the Chippewa Valley since 1981. When you need legal help, if injured or accused of a crime, call 715-832-4330 for a free in-person consultation.
Let's talk about accommodations real quick. Obviously, we've got old barns throughout the Midwest, and we've got brand new arenas like the Le Bon here. Mm-hmm. Talk about the differences going to like Eagle River and, where you've got four walls and a barn door, and then you walk into the Le Bon. What are the differences in accommodations?
Well, right off the top, because it's cold today, the temperature for sure. Like some of the, I know Baraboo's one. I love going there because they always take such good care of us and have a crock pot full of good food and in the ref room. But you can just see the daylight, through the slabs of plywood on the walls, right? So, but again, like I love those older buildings. Like I love that they're still around and people are taking care of them. And you used to talk about Eagle River. I've never been there, but I'd love to skate a game there, just to see it and be in those places that people care so much about. So, the accommodations, it's again just happy to be there. And the rinks, like the funny thing about I would say it's probably more common than you think. A lot of rinks forget to build a referee locker room. Yeah. So you get in there and sometimes it's a closet with no plumbing, and you have to kind of, if you need to take a restroom break at intermission, you're out there with everybody else and they're getting questions about the calls and the game and all that. So, those things are just kind of like an aw shucks silly moment, when you get to a building and there isn't a designated locker room for referees, but it just toughens our shell a little bit. We always enjoy that. And most importantly, I think we always enjoy the camaraderie of just being there together and working the game together.
Okay, I agree with you. The camaraderie is great,
yeah.
But there's not you guys. I'm going to call you out on it's always great because some of those places just are not the greatest. I mean, the game is great,
yeah.
But when you got to go back into that locker room or that ref room or, for lack of better terms, a broom closet
yep.
in between periods, it sucks.
Yeah, especially if it's cold. All you want to do is warm up and your hands are frozen and you can't get your Snickers bar open or whatever to have a snack, and
it's frozen solid.
Yeah. So
you break your teeth.
Still finishing it when you come back on the ice.
So as you're You talk about your camaraderie with your referee partners, whatever. Do you guys ever, between periods or after the game, you obviously talk about things that you have heard out there or things that people have said to you? Have there ever been any good chirps that you've gotten from a coach, or you've heard players chirp each other, or maybe a player chirps you? I mean, that you can share. Obviously, we're a PG. We want your son to be able to listen to this and not be offended, and your wife not get upset with you.
I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get you guys in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the straight and narrow here. So anything you can share with us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say they're all PG, right? They're always all PG.
The chirps are always PG. Exactly.
He hasn't been to the games I've been to.
No, the one that comes to mind, there was I mean, I think too, like when a coach has a point, or sometimes coaches and players may be right. Like there's something that we don't see right too. So I think honestly, the best policy is honesty, to try and just communicate honestly, and if appropriate, and if you have to know the audience and have a good working relationship with that coach or player, like sometimes it's you can insert some humor here or there. But one that immediately comes to mind, I was working a game here about a month ago, and a player, there was an icing situation. His team iced the puck, and of course he was trying to change, and I was like, no, you're back on. Like, you were out here. And he was telling me his skate blade was messed up, lost an edge or whatever. I was like, I'm not, like, there's one thing we're not doctors, we're not equipment personnel, right? Like, rules are rules, like you got to stay out here. And so puck went down, and I just happened to notice he made a great play, like a great hustle play to get the puck out of his D zone, got it to the red line, dumped it in and changed. And I just kind of made a mental note of it and thought, And so coming out for the next period, we were walking down the hallway, and the coach was there. He's like, "Hey, what's he supposed to do if his skates, broken like that, or his edge was pretty bad, And he was being sincere. Like he wasn't chirping me or anything, but just was like asking the question. And I remembered that he ended up making a good play. And I said, well, he needs to make a great play and get off the ice like he did. And so the coach just kind of smiled a little bit, and the player was right there too. And he looked at him, he was like, yeah, he's right. So I think things like that and it came from a place of honesty. I just remember the player, and it's giving props to them, right? Like he made a great play and helped his team out on 3 edges nonetheless. So it was, I think those types of situations, you just try and, be honest, and sometimes less is more too. Coaches are sometimes just looking to be heard and not always be communicated back with, but the times too when they want the information that you have, right, or the perspective that you have. So I think that honesty and trying to keep it short and quick and back to the puck moving around is the best medicine.
You ever had that coach that's leaning over the boards and he's just hollering, think he's going to have a coronary right there?
Yeah.
And then after the game, you're shaking hands, having a cold beverage with him?
Yeah. Well, I've never had the cold beverage, but for sure, you understand when they just need to get something off their chest, and you let them, right? You listen to them. And that sometimes is what they want. They want to be heard. And I think what it comes down to a lot of the times is coaches just want, like the coaches and the players, they want a power play for their team, right? And so letting them be heard and again, being honest with them, like that's not how I saw it, or I didn't see it too. It could happen that way too. So I would say most coaches, 99% of coaches, especially at the junior pro level and even the youth level, they're parents, they're dads of the players or moms of the players, and they want to, build that relationship for the next time they see you too. And that's something that I encourage coaches to do. I've done a few presentations with some youth hockey programs, and especially when they're working with new officials, make sure they have a good time. Like if you're a coach, if you have some criticism for them, like give them that criticism sandwich, tell them something good they did, tell them what you wish they would have done better, and then tell them something good again. I think that can go a long way to making sure that we have more officials in the pipeline coming up, and especially making sure those new officials and those younger officials have the confidence to come back and work your next game. Because the last thing we want is no hockey games because there were no referees to sign up, right?
Do you kind of do that for the coach then too? Tell him something good he coached, and then tell him to shut up, and then
it depends. Yeah,
criticism sandwich. Yeah. Good way to describe it.
You lead with the shut up, right? Yeah. No, I mean I do honestly. Like I'll tell a coach and let them know of something that I appreciated they did about how they communicated with us, and I've had it happen a few times here recently where coaches told us what they appreciated too. And I tell you, that goes a long ways. Like, we feel good about being there and doing the game as a crew and a team of officials, but to have a coach share that appreciation it means the world to us. So I think that can always be a great thing to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that everybody's there for the right reasons, to make sure the kids have a good time.
So let's talk about types of games.
Yeah.
The best game to coach is or best game to officiate is one that's up and down action, a lot of opportunities, a lot of scoring chances, a lot of tight checking, a lot of clean play. What are some of the toughest types of games to officiate?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the good games. Those are easy, where you just can very simply stay out of it
kind
and
of swallow the whistle.
Let the players play. Yeah. I joke with my referee friends that sometimes a game doesn't even need referees. If you had two good lines people just dropping pucks and calling the blue lines, that's all you need. You don't need the penalties and all that.
Kind of like the Suter game.
Yeah, the rest sorts itself out, right?
What do the refs say about that?
Yeah. Probably not much. They'll get me back later. Yeah. No, the toughest games to work are the lopsided ones, especially with the bigger kids, or, the juniors or the adults, where, things can just take a left turn quickly, so that's where we really have to, be in the right places, know where the hot spots are, know who's most upset, know who might do something, a little poke, a whack here, so those are the toughest. I had a game and I was working, speaking of Coach Cook, who you guys interviewed before, he passed my name along to work a youth tournament in Europe one time. And I was in Finland. It's a team of Russians and a team from North America, and lopsided game. And we made it through to the final whistle, and it was in the handshake line. A kid comes off the bench and just cross-checks a kid from Russia in the back, and it just started like a huge melee, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do here? But it was... thankfully the Zambonis came out, and that kind of served as our third lines person and got everybody cleared out. But those are the games where like the frustrations boil up, and rightfully so, like players want to win. They're competitive, and but those games, definitely you have to be on it and know where all the hot spots are, and again, keep everybody doing their job, and make sure everything is safe and fair all the way through the whistle, because then last thing you want is a major problem in a long box score, for sure.
Yeah.
You've got a unique spot on the ice, and your vision is constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking at? Why are you looking at it? And what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's I think it's a me thing, like a singular official thing, but it's a team thing too for us, whether it's a 3 official system or a 4 official system. And that's something we talk about before all of our games. What are we looking at and when, and how can we complement each other's sight lines? No different than a D partner or a line mate would be talking about coverage on the ice in different areas, to accomplish what they want to. So, for me, I'm constantly aware, especially breakouts, right? Like as a lines person, you want to be aware of where the forwards are. How are they going to make the pass? Like what's option A, what's option B, what's option C? And you hope that they make option A, because you really need to anticipate and be prepared for every play, especially as it's coming across the blue line or a potential icing play. But you also need to be patient too, just to see what fully develops and ends up happening in reality. So, for me, it's a lot of, as a lines person, it's a lot of watching players and how they're breaking out. And then, when it gets down to it, you have to kind of shift your eyes down, and it's on puck, and it's on the right skates and legs and things like that. And as a referee, of course, or even as a lines person, when I'm not watching my blue line, you're just kind of watching very generally and broadly, like where players are together, where hits are going to happen, like make sure you don't leave a hit too early, always watching in front of the net, and this is again where that pregame talk comes in, to make sure that you have all those areas covered, and you hopefully see it all, and you're prepared for it when it happens, and you get those calls right. So lots of preparation for sure, to make sure your eyes go in the right spot. Yeah, years and years of preparation.
So do you think video replay has helped the referee profession or hurt it?
I think it's helped it. If we let it go too far, I think it would definitely hurt it, because there's so much of an art to officiating that if you take some of that away, it can certainly kill the flow of the game. And that's why we love hockey, right? The constant flow and the movement. But I think when it comes to making sure you get goals right, what matters most, you want to be able to review those situations and make sure 100% we got that right. And we didn't wave a goal off incorrectly or miss pointing a goal. You really want to make sure that those plays get right to honor the game and make sure that what happens, again, we leave no fingerprints and everything happens fairly and safely.
Looking back on your career, I'm kind of stalling here. JC's choking to death over here. So
Swallow the frog.
as your career has transpired, do you have I know you've refereed hundreds and hundreds of games, maybe thousands, I don't know, but do you have a favorite game? And do you have a least favorite game?
Yeah. I mean, I would say probably, my favorite game, this is a little bit of a cop-out, but I'll say my next one. Like, again, I'm just always so excited to work the next game. And when we get our schedule, you always check to see who your partners are. Like, it's one of the first things that you look for, is to see who you're working with. I will circle back on the favorite game. I think working the finals of the USHL last year was just such a cool deal, and to be on the ice for those intense moments, those moments that matter, in a final series. Those couple games were pretty special, and to be able to work those with close friends too was pretty unique. And again, the tough ones are what we talked about earlier, where there's maybe a little bit of a mismatch or whatever, but you can always try and make lemon out of lemonade with those. And again, make sure everyone's having fun, especially the teams that's losing, maybe make sure they have fun and get something out of it rather than the scoreboard.
Oh, sometimes that's tough to do.
Sometimes the clock does not move fast enough.
Yeah.
Any rinks that you go to that has got that one fan or that one heckler that's over the boards? You're wearing the beautiful orange and black for us today with your style, and you got it. Oh, he's got a smile on his face. I got a story for this one.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. There was, I was just in Des Moines, and there's always a fan in Des Moines, or maybe it's a couple fans. I don't know. You never make eye contact, right? You never look up there, but they're just always feeding it to us. Like in warm-ups, like nothing's even happened yet, and they're letting us have it. But there was a couple kids, I was working a game recently, and they did the old like high five too slow thing. I think their team was losing, and they were I don't know what they were even mad about, but of course it's our fault. So they put the hand out for a high five and then pulled it back at the last second. So that was, they got us there. But they're always asking for pucks. So next time I'll probably throw the puck over the other side of the glass.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's been your most positive interaction with a player out on the ice?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think there's quite a few of them, and the ones that come to mind are those where you build that trust and rapport through honesty. I think there's never been a perfect game called, and letting people know that that you didn't quite see something all the way, or you went back and looked at it. It's like, you're right. Like, I think those moments can really build that relationship, that working relationship. Because at the end of the day, at some level, we're kind of like coworkers with the players, especially at the higher levels in the pro game. This is a job for them, and we have to effectively do our job too, so that way they can all do what they need to. So those I think are the best ones, and it really comes down to the players that you see often enough, and just like teammates, they're happy to see you and glad that you're on their game, and know that they're going to get a fair shake that day because you're there. Those I think are the best, kind of the best memories that come to mind. There's not one certain one that stands out, I guess, but overall, that's kind of what you're looking to achieve in this job, right? If there's any sort of reward for doing this job, that might be it.
As you look back through the games that you've refereed, back however many years ago to now, you're on the ice with former youth players that might be playing D1 or pro, or currently with pro players. Who's been the most successful player that you've been on the ice with?
Yeah. I mean, just skating in the USHL alone, there was, I skated with that team in the U.S. team in 18-19, I think, that had Jack Hughes and Cole Caulfield. Like, they came through Madison. I was able to be on one of those games. I remember the first face-off of the game. There's, I don't know how many people were in the building, but 90% of them had to be scouts, watching. And Jack Hughes kind of pulled a spin move on me, so I had to kick him out of the faceoff circle as first faceoff. It's like, oh my gosh, everyone's here to watch him play center, and I'm kicking him out of the
Number
faceoff
one
circle.
overall draft pick in his draft year too.
Yeah,
And you booted him.
yeah. So I mean,
Hey,
there's
you
been
did the
those
right
and-
thing.
Yeah, right. It was fair. It was fair is fair. So, no, I mean, there's been too many players to mention for sure. But it's such a treat to be able to skate in that league and the AHL and the ECHL to see these players. Like the best part is seeing the players in junior hockey and then meeting up with them again later, in pro hockey and
cool.
in the AHL and in the ECHL. So that's fun just to kind of catch up with them a little bit and ask how they've been doing, ask how their last 4 years have been or whatever. And again, it lets them know that you care about them too. And you're here to ultimately help everybody out by doing your job safely and fairly. So, so those moments are always pretty cool to see those players over time.
So coming up on 2 years ago, there was a veteran official named Tim Peel.
Mm-hmm.
Made a big mistake, made a comment on a hot mic about keeping things equal on the penalty ledger.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself, if one team is predominantly taking the penalties, do you ever try to look for something on the other side at least just to kind of make things even, or you just call them the way you see them and that's the way it's got to be?
Yeah, I think you do. Like you have to call it the way you see it, and if you start keeping the marbles in your pocket or whatever to like make sure you have a fair number of calls either way, like you're bound to make a wrong decision or a tough decision. I think you really, when it comes to calling penalties, like you want to call what jumps out to you, right? You want to call the safety fouls, you want to call the scoring potential plays, you want to call the turnovers, all of those things. So if you're out there trying to, and not saying he was doing this again, like probably the best policy with that whole situation is no comment, but I think when it comes down to it, all referees are just trying to do the best job possible and keep everything fair and safe for the players that are out there. But for sure, it's you're just watching the game and trying to let things jump out to you, right? Like make sure you're calling good penalties. And again, like I talked about earlier, we have coaches and supervisors coming around that are making sure we're calling good penalties too. So you want to leave the minute and a half penalties out there and make sure you're calling the good 2 minute penalties for sure. Have as little impact on the game as you can.
All referees, like players, have their favorite line mates or they have their favorite crew to work with. You don't have to name names, but are there times when you get to a game and you look at your crew and you go, oh, I'm going to have to be covering 2 positions tonight instead of just one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to be looking at 3/4 of the rink instead of half the rink.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. No, I mean,
Oh, no, come on.
Well, a week and a half ago, I caught the bug my son had. So my partner, I showed up to the rink and my partner was thinking that about me because I was a little bit under the weather. So I made it a little bit harder on him that night as a teammate on the lines. But no, I mean, I don't think so. Like and honestly, I love if that happens, it's because it's someone's new, right? And again, I go back to the mode of trying to make sure they have a good time and they learn and I may be at a certain point in my development as an official and they're at a different point. And so let's what do they need to know now today that can help them out and be successful in this game and make sure they have a good time and continue on with it. So, happy to do more of the lift if I need to in a certain game to help someone out. But, you just hope that they stick with it and, pay it forward down the road to someone else too. So rarely does it ever happen. If it does, it's because of injury or illness or something like that. And of course you're happy to cover for your buddy and make sure that the job gets done, of course.
Do you ever look back at that one call that still haunts you that you either missed or you made and you go, doggone it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got one or two. How about you? Well,
they probably haunt you in terms of like lost sleep for a few nights, but I quickly try and turn those haunts into, I call them tools in my tool belt. It's either a missed call or a situation that you didn't quite anticipate it the right way or see it the right way on the ice. So all of those things you really try and, in a healthy way, like try and, take your lumps from it, learn from it, and quickly put it in your tool belt to be prepared for the next time that it happens. And that's what, ultimately that's what experience does for you. So, there's always those calls. And sometimes for us as a lines person, we're always kind of making the same calls, right? It's offsides, it's icings, it's you're taking a look for too many men. You're making sure face-offs are fair. So it's really it's all the same calls. It's not necessarily a different call, but it's like the moments that they happen in, right? And you always have to be prepared for those important moments late in the game, or something that happens just a little bit differently. So again, it's a tool belt thing for me. It's the Haunts kind of turn into a tool belt that's getting pretty heavy at this point.
Well, that means it's a good thing. That means you have a lot of tools that you can draw from, where a young official hasn't developed those tools yet. So that's definitely why experience is such a huge factor.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for quite a long time, and you've ascended all the way up to the AHL, which is just below the top level. How long do you see yourself doing this?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably need to consult my wife here to see how long I can keep doing it. But I honestly love doing it, and like we talked earlier, I love the process of being prepared for it. And I feel like I really owe that to the game, to be prepared physically and mentally too. Talking about rule study and situations and film review and all of those things. So as soon as I lose the time or the ability or the passion for those things, I think will be when I kind of stop officiating. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. The one thing I'm excited about my 2-year-old, just to see what he gets into. So maybe I'll have to give up a little bit of my officiating time for coaching soccer or hockey or baseball, whatever it is. So those things I'm looking forward to for sure. But I think I'm a lifer at this point. I don't see myself giving it up unless something unforeseen happens.
Just getting to know you within this last hour, I agree with that assessment. You are so positive; it's unbelievable. That I think you're a great influence on the games that you officiate, and a good person, a good mentor for up and coming officials.
I'd have to agree, and I've got one last question, and that is, you choose to be would prefer to be a linesman rather than a referee. You're in the middle of the scrums, and you got to pull players apart, especially at the AHL.
Yeah.
Any players look at you and say, "Let me go. I need to beat the F out of this guy," or you get in the middle of a swing, and by George, you stick your noggin right where it wasn't supposed to be, and your helmet's half off.
Yeah, it has happened before where someone else's noggin got punched, and that noggin went back into mine. But I would say for the most part, like, very rarely is someone so mad that they would say, "Let me go, let me at him," type of thing. Players are generally pretty respectful. They settle what they need to settle, whether it's through a scrum or a fight, and they're typically, telling each other good job and make sure they're okay too. So that's I think one of the beautiful things about hockey is just that respect factor that players have, and they're quick to go back to doing their jobs. So I've been fortunate that way. Maybe it's my bad dad jokes when I get in there, and that's what really shuts down the scrums, but it's the wet blanket on the fire. But, again, for the most part, I would say players are pretty much respectful to one another, and other than being upset about certain things, but they settle it and move on and get back to trying scoring goals.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Moog, it's been pretty insightful. Very knowledgeable, and he is definitely the data guy, isn't he?
He's the data guy, but I think he's in the refereeing field for the right reason. He's not a washed-up player looking with an axe to grind or anything like that against any former players. He's all about keeping it clean, keeping it skillful, keeping it positive, and God, those are the guys we need in the stripes.
Yeah, we're always looking for more. So if you guys want to get into it, get back into it. Yeah, I got a whistle for you. We'll get you. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has been great, and appreciate you again for being at the Bob Suter Memorial Game and saying hi to the referees on the way out the door.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Greg. Thank you to Greg Offerman, and thanks again to our audience. And a special thank you to our sponsor, State Farm Insurance, Hertel Law, Raleigh's Coach Club, Riverside Bike and Skate, and Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and visit us on our website at thebreakoutsessions.com. And as always, folks, remember, until our next episode, stay on your inside edges.